Learning from adult role models who are blind or low vision, presented by Outreach Programs, the Colorado School for the Deaf and the Blind. The CSDB logo is displayed with the tagline, Learning, Thriving, Leading. Our presenter, Matt, is standing in front of a brick wall in the CSDB library. Captions are below on screen. Title, Matt.
My name is Matt Simpson. I am 22 years old. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, and I have Leber's congenital amaurosis, which is a sort of a cousin of retinitis pigmentosa. It is a congenital retinal condition, and it's degenerative. So I was born with Leber's, and growing up, I had more vision. I could walk around and I could read large print and I could, do most of the functions of everyday life with vision. And then when I was probably 3 years old, they realized that I had a vision condition, mostly because I started running into things and that just wasn't right. So they figured it out, and since then it's been kind of a steady decline in my vision, to the point where today I have a little bit of functional vision with some light perception and some shadows and shapes and contrast, but nothing really useful in an academic or a work setting. I graduated in 2012 from Washington and Lee University, which is a small liberal arts college in Lexington, Virginia. The school is about 2,000 kids, so a really small school, but it was a great place for me, and was really fortunate to have a lot of academic success there. And in school, I used mostly JAWS, a little bit of Braille, but for the most part, everything was auditory. So all my textbooks were, RFB&D or Bookshare, and then on my computer. So I majored in political science and graduated with a bachelor's in political science from there. And currently I am the membership and outreach coordinator for the U.S. Association of Blind Athletes, which is a nonprofit organization in Colorado Springs. And we're a member organization of the U.S. Olympic Committee, and we do a bunch of national and local programs for people who are blind and visually impaired to promote sports and recreation to them. And besides being an employee of USABA, I'm also an athlete myself, and I play on the United States men's national goalball team. And I'm training hard for that, and hoping that when Rio comes along in 2016, that I'll be going down there for the Paralympic Games.
Title, Tools that support individuals who are blind or have low vision.
Like I said, I use JAWS. I use a lot of speech output, a little bit of Braille. At my job, it's mostly computer-based, a lot of emails and Word documents and internet documents and a lot of stuff like that. So my ability to function with screen reader technology is hugely important. Besides that, I use an iPhone, which has been awesome. I use that for work and for everything else too, all of my reading, and whether it be books or magazines that I read or newspapers that I want to read. All of that is on my phone, as well as navigation. If I need to tell somebody how to get somewhere, if I'm walking somewhere and I need to know, the phone is great for that, and just countless other ways. So that's pretty much, those are the devices I use. I use a cane on occasion as well, and then I have a guide dog who I work with all the time. So those are what enable me to function, and it's a pretty good setup for me.
Title, Family Support.
My parents have definitely been hugely important in my development, academically, socially, athletically, all of the above. They had no idea what to do when I was diagnosed with Leber's when I was 2 or 3 years old. They had no clue what it was to have a child who was blind. And I have a sister who's 4 years older, and she's not visually impaired. And I think that was hugely important for me, that I did have that sister and have my parents who forced me all the time to not use my blindness as an excuse, not use that as a reason for doing anything differently. They continually forced me out into situations where maybe I wasn't the most comfortable, or maybe maybe I didn't know, or they didn't know exactly what to do or how to do it. But ultimately, that has definitely prepared me for growing up and for living on my own and having a full-time job and being an athlete and traveling independently all over the world pretty much. My sister was an athlete as well, and because of her kind of blazing the path for me, I was able to see what that was like. And my parents always emphasized athletics as something that was important. And when I discovered what goalball was, I immediately loved it and took that up as my thing. And going to the Paralympics has been my dream since I was little, and my parents always emphasized that. But I think the most important thing, any parent of anyone with a disability, especially someone who's visually impaired, the most important thing a parent can do is sometimes to not do much at all. It's not to say that I was neglected, but I think that when a parent steps back from a kid, no matter how old the kid is, and lets them develop and kind of strike out on their own, it hugely benefits the child. I always had support, and I always had, the ride to school or practice or a tournament, or my dad is my goalball coach. I always had that support, but a lot of times I think the best things that my parents did were to let me figure things out on my own. And like I said, that served me today. As I've moved 2 times, I've moved thousands of miles away from home, and I live on my own. And don't use blindness as an excuse. Don't do anything differently. Have the same expectations or higher expectations as your peers. That's academically, I was really fortunate. I got a full ride academic scholarship to college, and went to a great school and had a great experience there, and did a lot of things. I was the leader of our student government, and did a lot of stuff like that I think I would not have done had I not been forced as a child to really quickly just forget what I couldn't do or forget what obstacles were in my way, but to just go after whatever I wanted.
Title: Challenges and Opportunities.
The greatest challenge to anyone with a disability is interacting with the world around them and educating people about themselves and their disability. When you're a kid, people definitely are not as sensitive as they could be and not as understanding at times. So I think when you do grow up with a disability, you kind of develop a thicker skin to a lot of things. And when I was in school, I definitely had to deal with the same thing. Kids didn't understand that I was blind, or they didn't understand that just because I couldn't see didn't mean that I couldn't hear them, or that I didn't understand what was going on around me. So I think that's the biggest challenge for anyone, is to first figure out how to deal with your disability from a logistical standpoint. How do I walk down the street? How do I read the menu at this restaurant? How do I take notes in class? Those things are hard, for sure. But there are a lot of great resources to do that and a lot of great tools. But I think the bigger challenge is the social challenge, and learning how to present your disability to people in such a way that they're not intimidated by that, and that they realize that you're just like they are, and that you are not you're not weird, or you're not an alien because you have different needs and different capabilities. Teaching people what you need, what your disability means to you, is a huge challenge. But as I grew up, for sure, I realized that, my blindness is a challenge in a lot of ways, but it's also an opportunity to relate to people on a different level, and to kind of show them something that they necessarily probably haven't thought about before, or teach them about something that they aren't aware of. So I try to look at that every time I meet someone new. There's often some frustration because people sometimes don't necessarily understand your disability, but at the same time, it's an opportunity to teach them and be an advocate for yourself and for everyone who has a disability.
Title: Self-Advocacy.
I originally I attended a small private school where my mom worked and where my sister was in class. And when they diagnosed me with Leber's, my parents realized that that wasn't going to be a long-term solution. I was relying completely on my vision, reading. I had a magnification system, but other than that, I was completely dependent on my sight. And with it deteriorating, that wasn't going to be a good solution forever. So my parents took me out of that school and they put me into a public school where, in my area, where there was some full-time vision teachers and Braille technology and all of that stuff. So I started learning Braille when I was in second grade and picked it up pretty quickly, and started using that as my pretty much exclusive means of education for the next 6 or 7 years. First with the old Perkins Brailler and even the slate and stylus, and Braille textbooks and all of my materials in Braille, and then eventually moving on to note takers and refreshable Braille as I moved up in school and as that technology became available. And then after 8th grade, I was enrolled in a public middle school, and my parents decided that they wanted to take me back to a private school where my mom was working again and where my sister was in school or had just graduated from. So for high school, I went to a small Christian private school, and that was definitely a challenging experience. There was no support as far as a vision teacher who could give me Braille information. There was no staff member who knew how to handle anyone with a visual impairment. So it was basically me and my few pieces of technology and my devices. So I had to really quickly learn how to communicate with teachers and administrators and express what I needed as far as adaptations in the classroom or extra test taking time or accommodation on materials, getting tests to me in an electronic format, all that kind of stuff. I had to really quickly learn how to be independent, and all my teachers were great and were very willing to work with me, but they had no idea what I needed, so I had to learn to articulate that and get that point across to them. So that was, I think, another big advantage for me, was getting that experience early, because when I graduated from high school, I went to another small private college, small private school, and was in the same situation. I had a really supportive administration and really supportive faculty, but they had no idea what I needed. And I was, again, in the situation where everything that I got was a direct result of how much I worked for it. So if I needed something emailed to me instead of handed out in class, I had to do that. Or if I needed a teacher to present a class lecture in an alternative format, or give me something that, a PowerPoint presentation or notes off of a board, I was in a position where I needed to do that because I didn't have any support staff who were there to help me with special needs. So my education was great in a lot of ways, and I definitely could have had an easier path, but I think the path that I did take was hugely beneficial, because ultimately, in a job setting, in a professional environment, it's the same thing. You don't have you don't have someone there to serve your needs, to get you the materials in the format you need. If your boss says do something and you don't know how to do it, well, you better figure out pretty quickly. And if he gives you something in an inaccessible format, he's not going to care. He wants you to figure it out. And if you can't do that, then you're probably not going to be a good employee, and you're not going to stick around for very long. So I definitely feel very fortunate to have had that educational background. Currently I'm working for U.S. Association of Blind Athletes, like I said, and I employ those skills every day. But I've also worked in college. I worked on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. I worked for a congressman, and I worked for a national party organization. And then I also interned for a Fortune 500 company. And in all of those professional environments, it was the same. They have expectations of you, and just because you use JAWS or another media for your work, they don't expect any less of you. So I was very well prepared for that kind of environment.
Title: Relating to People with Vision Loss.
I think the biggest thing that I would tell anyone working with a blind kid, whether it's a parent or a teacher or a coach or any guitar teacher, whatever it is, let your blind kids experience success and failure at the same rate that any other kid would. Sheltering kids is never ultimately a very successful method of letting them grow up, and I think it's multiplied when you're blind. You can shelter a blind kid from a few things. You can shelter them from running into an obstacle that they might not know is there, or you can shelter them from if someone's mean to them, you can shelter them. But ultimately, I think you're better off letting them experience the failures that they need to understand in life, because if you don't know how to fail, you're probably not going to know how to succeed either. So, for parents, I think it's really hard to watch their children get hurt, whether that's a scrape on the knee or, a bad result in a class or anything like that. But ultimately, I think parents, teachers, coaches, all of the above, let your kids fail, let them understand that failing is a natural part of life and that success is a natural byproduct of working hard. And the two, working hard and success are hand in hand. They're not separate, and you can't have success without hard work. And I think when we shelter kids, especially blind kids, we kind of minimize what it is to work hard for something and to achieve something. Just as when we shelter them from failure, we minimize, what there is out there in the world as far as how you can get hurt and how you can fail. But true independence and true self-reliance is going to come when that kid or that teenager realizes that their consequences have actions just like the sighted kids and just like everyone else, and that what they earn in life is what is a result of how hard they work and how much they want to do something. The thing that bothers me most about public perceptions about disability, but blindness in particular, is the fact that people don't always understand that just because you are blind, most of your other faculties are still probably working, fully, if not better than most. So, people who want to be nice but come up and offer you help, or don't even offer you help, they just come up and grab you and think that because you're blind, you have no idea what you're doing, where you're going, or anything like that. So, I mentioned the willingness to ask for help as a crucial skill for people who are visually impaired. But at the same time, I think there's a need to balance that with independence, and sometimes, fierce independence. And, you never want to be rude to people. You never want to be off-putting to someone. But at the same time, if you know what you're doing, or even if you don't know what you're doing, sometimes you want to be able to accomplish things on your own. So, if I'm walking down an unfamiliar street, yeah, I might not know what's up ahead, but if I'm in the situation where, I'm doing something, I probably don't want someone to come up and grab me and try to point me in the right direction, or even try to drag me where they think I should go. So I think for the public, I think I would express the sentiment that people who are blind and visually impaired are usually very capable people, very intelligent, capable, independent people, and that if that comes along with socially treat them as equals. Don't treat them as people who are less capable of understanding something, or who don't necessarily have as much social awareness as you, and and their everyday life. Treat them as equals and as independent people who occasionally might need a little bit of help, but only when they ask for it, and only if they feel like they're being asked in a understanding way. Nobody wants to be condescended to. Nobody wants to be treated like they have less ability or less understanding of the world. So I think that's the biggest public perception, is that blind people are lacking something besides just the ability to see. For me, I try to keep a good attitude and teach people whenever I meet someone new, I try to teach them that I am just as capable as they are at most things. Maybe I won't go play their Xbox with them, but other than that, I'm probably able to do most of the things they are. And if I need some help, then definitely it's always great to have friends with sight to help you out.
Title: Keys to Success.
For me, I think the skills and attitude that have helped me succeed, like I said, the willingness to put myself out into situations that I'm not completely comfortable in. I would say for me that's the biggest attitude and skill. I guess it's kind of both that have served me. Whether that means going into a new situation in my everyday life. I might not know how to get to a certain store that I want to go to, but figuring out how to do it and how I can do it, and being willing to go into a place that I might not know. I think that's a small example, but I think it's a larger metaphor too for living with a disability. A lot of times, when you're blind, the biggest thing you lack is information and security. You don't know all the time exactly what's going on around you. You don't know, you might not know where something is in relation to you because of your lack of vision, but you have to try and you have to get out and improve your skills that allow you to do that. And you also have to be willing to ask for help too. So for me, a willingness to fail, a willingness to try things new, and a willingness to know when I need help. I think if you ask most people who are blind, they definitely hate to be helped if they don't need it. But if you can't recognize when you do need help, you're going to be in a bad spot at some point, and you're not going to be able to figure out how to get out of it. Because the reality is, being blind is a significant disadvantage, and sometimes you do need to go, whether it's the random stranger walking down the street next to you, or if it's your mom or your dad or your buddy, you need to know when to say, hey, look, I can't do this, I need some help, or hey, I can do this, I just need you to help me out with this. Like I said, the willingness to try new things, be out of your comfort zone, those are the biggest things that I think every blind child should develop.
Learning from adult role models who are blind or low vision has been a production of the Colorado School for the Deaf and the Blind, 33 North Institute Street, Colorado Springs, Colorado, 80903, 719-578-2100, www.csdb.org. Videography by Deb Branch and Sean Levier, copyright 2014.
Audio description, Jim Olson. Editing assistants, Diane Covington, Dr. Laura Douglas. Captioning, Neil Anthony Thomas, Corey McCormick. Transcription, Eleanor Vasquez.
Described and captioned media program. In the classroom and online. dcmp.org.
Off Topic, On Topic. Creative Developer Julie Novak, CTVI. Colorado School for the Deaf and Blind. Captioning services provided by Caption Perfect. Description services provided by Bridge Multimedia.
A title: CSDB Social Skills Lesson.
Okay, class, last time we talked about
One student touches another.
answer yourself, off-topic and on-topic conversations, right? So I'm going to sing you a song, and I would like you to tell me what the topic of the song is. Are you ready?
Yeah.
The teacher plays guitar for 5 students.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd.
One guy raises his hand.
Give me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I never get back. What's the topic of that song, Martin?
A baseball game.
Yes, all of the lyrics relate to a baseball game. You're exactly right. Here is another one. Tell me what you think the topic of the song is.
2 guys nod along together. A girl taps her thighs in rhythm.
Sweet home Colorado. Red skies are blue. Sweet home Colorado.
Another guy raises his hands.
What's the topic with that song, Nathan?
On top.
Martin's hand is up too.
Yeah, what's it about?
As called.
Home. It's about a song about home, and this person's home happens to be Colorado. Yep, good job. Conversations are like songs in the fact that you always kind of want them to relate to a topic. You don't, when you're in a conversation with someone, you don't want to go completely off topic. I'm going to actually sing a song for you right now, and one of the lyrics is going to be completely off topic, and you have to guess which lyric is off topic. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Martin.
Bring it.
Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side.
Nathan rocks and claps.
Sunny side of life, what's for lunch? It will help us every day, it will brighten all the way.
Martin and the girl beside him both raise their hands.
Life. Which comment was off topic, Laura?
The what's for lunch comment.
Yes, it had nothing to do with the song. So, we are going to do a practice. We're going to play a game. I'm going to pick a subject. You and your friend are going to have a back and forth conversation, taking turns, but you need to stay on topic, okay? Raise your hand if you'd like to participate or to be a volunteer for this conversation.
Martin raises his hand. A new title, Evaluation.
Okay, raise your hand if you'd like to be Martin's conversation partner.
Laura.
Okay, Laura. So Laura's sitting up straight and looking towards each other. Now, Martin and Laura, your topic is going to be music. You guys have to talk about music for 20 seconds, okay? Going back and forth on the topic of music. Martin, you're going to start the conversation. Ready? Go.
Laura, what's your favorite type of music?
My favorite type of music is Whitney Houston and Dixie Chicks. And some of Adele, like someone like you, but I don't like Rolling in the Deep or Set Fire to the Rain.
Okay, let the conversation go back to Martin. Laura, ask him a question.
What is your favorite food?
So that's off topic.
Right. So Laura, we wanted to stay on music for 20 seconds, okay? So can you ask him a question about music?
What do you like about music?
Later.
Okay, let's go ahead and stop. Give them a hand. Give them a hand. They did a great job.
The described and captioned media program provides services designed to benefit students who are blind, visually impaired, deaf, hard of hearing, and deaf-blind. These services include a library of free loan described and captioned educational media, a clearinghouse of information related to educational media access, a gateway to Internet resources related to accessibility. There are no user registration or service fees. Visit the DCMP at dcmp.org. The DCMP is funded by the U.S. Department of Education and administered by the National Association of the Deaf.
Sun, sun, sun. The sun is very hot. The sun is yellow. Bike, bike, bike. She has a new bike. We love to ride bikes.